will your anchor hold? A lot of times we go through difficulties in our lives. Most of the time we go through difficulties in our lives. And I thought we might spend a few minutes talking about that. We have that song in our song book, We Have an Anchor. And I'm going to be reading a passage of scripture here from James chapter 1 and verse 2 through 4. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And then if you'll go on over to verse 12 through 15. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. When desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful and will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able. But with temptation will also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. We need to always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. As we look at this, at our ability to always stay true to God and keep our anchor, which is God, as these passages that I just read, we can see that temptation that we face as we're here on this earth is common to each one of us. Each one of us are going to have to deal with temptation. And we're going to the devil is after you. And you need to be ready. And it's not being tempted that's sinful, because the Lord was tempted. And in Hebrews chapter 4 in verse 15, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Jesus was tempted. We will be tempted. Now, we're not going to be perfect, but we're always going to be looking to our Lord. And that's our anchor. And that's what's going to keep our soul. And we are going to need that anchor. Each one of us. Many of you know far and above have faced more trials probably than most people would in their lives. And it's important that you know that the Lord is always there for you. God allows temptation to happen. He allows us to be tempted. And I want to read a passage from 1 Peter chapter 4. Verses 12 and 13. Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trials which is to try you, as though some strange thing has happened to you, but rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. We can see here that these trials that we're going to face, we shouldn't think that when something happens to us and the devil's coming after us, we shouldn't be thrown off guard and allow ourselves to be pulled away from God because whatever it is that we faced, we didn't expect to face. We're going to be facing trials in this life, and they're not uncommon to man, and they're not strange. They're very common. And God allows Satan the power to tempt us, and each one of us is tempted in different ways. And when you're tempted and when something bad happens, will your anchor hold? You need to be thinking about that. Will your anchor hold? I know that I have been thinking about this for a little while, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Job. And over in Job chapter 1, beginning with verse 6, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? So Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him and his household, and around all he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands and his possessions, and have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Then the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay your hands on his person. Don't kill him. So, Satan, those of you who know a little bit about the book of Job, in a very short period of time after this, all these things just started happening to him. His oxen were killed, his donkeys were killed, his camels, his servants, his sheep. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and the house collapsed in on them, and they were all killed. And Job said in Job 1, 21 and 22, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. That's from the King James Version, reads foolishly. If you ever thought about charging God with something that happened in your life, that would be a foolish mistake. There's no one who cares more for you than the Lord does. No one. Satan, he continued to go after Job. And he came back a second time and talked to the Lord. And he said to the Lord that if Job lost his health, that he would surely turn on God. And so Job was also plagued with boils from his head to his feet. And he was plagued with boils. And his wife and his friends thought that he had done something wrong. His wife told him that thou speakest as she said that in Job 2:9, doth thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. Job said in verse 10, thou speakest as a foolish woman speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God? And we shall not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. So Job did do some complaining, and that's in Job chapter 10 and verse 1. He does some complaining about his soul is weary of his life, and he will leave his complaints upon himself. I will speak in bitterness of my soul. And Job 17 and verse 1, my breath is corrupt, my days are extinct, the graves are ready for me. He even went so far as to say that in Job chapter 13, in verse 15, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. Even so, I will defend my own ways before him. Job went through an awful lot. And when we get to the end of the book of Job, we see how the Lord, after all these sufferings that Job went through, and all the temptation by Satan, we can see how Job was blessed with more than he had to start with. And these kind of things that happened to Job, I don't really know if anyone has suffered as much as Job did. When you think about it, I don't know of anyone who has suffered as much as Job. And so as we think about our anchor and what it means to us, can the Lord count on you? Can the Lord count on you to be dependable and to be there when temptation comes? In 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 12. Therefore, let he who thinks he stands, take heed lest he fall. Some people may have the idea, well, I don't have to worry about my anchor holding. I'm confident. And we all need to be looking to God, and as long as we're looking to God, He's going to be the one that is going to keep us, not ourselves. And we want to be aware of that. And in Matthew, we see how the apostles they were tempted, and Peter denied Jesus, and so he kind of failed. He denied Christ 3 times, and he kind of failed at that. So we want to submit ourselves, therefore, to God and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's James chapter 4 and verse 7. No one, it has been said many times, I think David even said it a week or so ago, that if the Lord is on your side, you don't have anything to worry about. Nothing. But you have to make sure that you are looking to the Lord. And so each one of us needs to take a look and examine whether the love of money, if that's going to be what's going to get us that temptation, or morality, if it's going to be that temptation that's going to get us, or whether or not we want to be popular in the world, and if that's the temptation that's going to get us, we need to be thinking about that and be aware of that. There's a little, a short little clip here that I want to read that's about a preacher. There was a story of a preacher who had one son. His life was wrapped up in that boy. The child became ill, and the father prayed night and day for his life. But the child died. But this man knew this lesson that we're talking about here today. He knew it very well. He knew that the devil sought for him to renounce God, cease his work, grow bitter in disappointment, curse God, and die. His awareness of Satan's wiles caused him to renew his faith, grow stronger, and rise above this burden to profit from his trying experience. Rather than being crushed beneath it, his son departed, and he became more determined than ever that heaven would be his home, and he would be reunited with his son again. So you can think, what about you? And I want to go back to a passage that we read earlier in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful and will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able. But with the temptation, He will make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. There's nothing that is going to happen to you that God and you can't handle together.
That's right.
Keep that in mind. Take that with you everywhere you go. Never, ever, ever lose your anchor. We have an anchor that keeps our soul. I hope this lesson this afternoon has been of some benefit to you. It has to me in the studying of this lesson. how important it is to not be distracted by the world, to not let Satan tempt us and lead us away. You know, we all have people that we know that have been led away. They have fallen away. I have some people very close to me that this has happened to. We have an anchor. Do not ever forget that. And if anyone is here this afternoon and has not yet become a Christian, we want to offer this opportunity for you to obey the gospel. The baptistry is ready, and we can take care of that this afternoon. If anyone needs the prayers of the congregation, come forward and we'll pray with you after services. If there's something that you'd like to talk about, you can meet with one of the men of the congregation. You can meet with me, and I'll talk with you about it. We have an anchor, and we're all here to encourage one another for the ultimate goal, and that is heaven when this short life is over. So short. If you'll stand, we'll sing the invitation song.